Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's webinar. My name is Jackie, and this morning I'm taking you through step 2 of, session 2 of 3, but we're actually looking at step 3 of the VAT return. And today we're going to be looking at completing and submitting the return. So this is the second in the series. Yesterday we did the first steps, which is prepare and reconcile. So we're going to be following on from that. Don't worry if you didn't join us yesterday. This is standalone, so you don't need to have attended yesterday. But if you do want to follow that up, there is a recording of that previous session available online now. In addition, we are going to be doing another session at 11 o'clock tomorrow, where we're going to be looking at VAT reports. So if you want to join that session, you can do so. I'll show you the link later on of where you can get registered, but there will also be a link in your follow-up email today as well. Okay, so first of all, just some quick housekeeping. So you are placed on mute, and that just means you won't be able to speak to us today. If you do have any questions, you can do so using the questions panel there. So that is the icon that looks like a speech bubble with the question mark in the middle, and that will allow you to type your questions across to the team there. So we've got Abby and Michael in the background at the moment. There is also a copy of today's slides, so if you do want to take a copy of the slides, please do so using the icon that looks like a document with the folded corner, and that will allow you to take a copy there. Okay, so this is what we're going to be covering today. We're going to be looking at VAT transfer journals. We're also going to be looking at options for processing the bank payment or receipt to or from HMRC or ROS, and then we're going to look at VAT submission. And VAT submission will be different depending on whether you are UK based or if you're in the Republic of Ireland. So with that in mind, I do have a very quick poll to start off the session with, just to find out how many of you are in fact doing a UK return, how many of you are doing a Republic of Ireland return, and also how many of you are in the situation where you're actually doing both. So I have just launched the poll. If you can just let us know which category you fit into, that would be fantastic. And it just enables us to cater the session to the needs of those that are on the session today. Okay, so we've got about 62% of the vote. We do have votes for both, so we will cover both. We're just about to hit 70%, so I will close it there, so don't worry. We are going to cover both on that basis. And as you can see, 95% of you are doing a UK return, and that's why we do our demonstrations using a UK data set. But again, as like yesterday, we will highlight the differences along the way. Okay, just going to go back a slide there. So first of all, if you are new to VAT and you're wanting a bit more information, a bit more training, you want something a bit more bespoke to your needs, we can offer training on this. So we do have an email address there at the bottom of the screen. If it's something you're looking for a bit more training that's a bit more personalised to you, then please do drop us an email and we'll arrange to give you a quick call so we can give you a personalised quote on that training session. Okay, so we're going to start with VAT transfer journals. I do apologise, I'm just going to reshare the screen there because I don't think that's coming through. So the link that I was just referring to there is in your handout. Okay, so you will get the handout if you click on that link on the right hand side there. That looks like a document there, and you'll be able to get the link in there for the email address should you need it. Okay. Okay, so VAT transfer journals. So what do we mean by a VAT transfer journals, and why do we need to post them? So after each VAT return, what we need to do is we need to post journals to transfer the values from your sales and purchase tax control accounts onto the VAT liability. So that should be done after each and every VAT return, just moving the balances from two nominal codes into the VAT liability. And that's one, because payments can't be made to those sales and purchase tax control accounts. It can't be made directly. But also, it just means that you're moving what's owed for that particular period, whether that be a month, a quarter, or a year, out of the sales and purchase tax control accounts and showing what the true liability is to HMRC or ROS until you can actually make the payment or the receipt in that case. So what happens if you don't post these journals? Okay, well, first of all, I'd say do not panic. Okay, you won't be alone. When we did Making Tax Digital in the UK, we found lots of people were in a similar position. They'd never done a journal before in their life. And to be honest, the impact isn't huge. It's more of a tidy up routine in your data. Okay, so what you'll start to see is when you look at your nominal ledger and your nominal codes, some of your balances on those nominal codes will just start to look quite high in comparison to some of your other nominal codes. Now, it doesn't really matter that they're high, okay? If you haven't done the journals, you can backdate the journals, that's fine. But it's not going to cause any issues with figures that you've submitted to HMRC because it's more of a tidy up routine. And those codes are normally grouped together in your chart of accounts for reporting purposes, so it won't really have impacted your balance sheet either. So it's more a tidy up routine just to make sure that your sales and purchase tax control accounts are really a true reflection of what's either owed to or from HMRC or ROS. So to show that, I do have an example of two data sets, one where the transfers haven't taken place and one where the transfers have taken place. So I'm just going to pause my screen for 1 second and I'm just going to show you the comparison of the two, just so you can start to see what I mean by that. So I've got two data sets. I've got one called incomplete transfer, okay, and I'm just going to share the screen. You should be able to see that now. So this is my incomplete transfer data set. Now in here, if I go into VAT, I've got exactly the same transactions posted. I have 4 VAT returns that have been run. Okay, so it's quite a small data set. And as you can see, when we're looking at the VAT transfer, we haven't got transfers. We've got one showing as transferred there. But 3 of these have not been transferred. Okay, so what that means is when I go into my nominal codes, we've got some balances sort of sitting on here. Now, I would expect balances on here, okay? I wouldn't necessarily expect these all to return to zero, but gradually over time, if you think about several years down the line, these are going to start to get really big figures, okay? And they're just going to sort of be a bit more stand out because they're really large figures. Now, if I compare that to a data set where all of the transfers have been done, which I'm just going to grab now, let's try and find the right one. This one here. This is exactly the same data set, okay, exactly the same, apart from I have done the transfers on all VAT returns. So you can see they all show as VAT transferred rather than just 3 of them. So that means when I look at my my nominal codes, I just seem to have a balance on my sales tax control account. So my purchase tax control account doesn't have anything at the moment. And my VAT liability has cleared back to zero. Okay, so really a VAT liability should always come back to zero because you add the liability on when you owe it to HMRC, and when you pay them, you clear it back down. Your sales and purchase tax control accounts, maybe not so much, okay, because they are cumulative codes that will constantly be updated as you're processing. So it would be rare for them to come back to zero unless you stopped processing entirely and cleared everything down. So don't be too alarmed. So really that was just to show the difference between the two data sets there. So if I just pop them alongside each other, you can see I've only got one balance as opposed to the 3 there. So you can see there, if I was to run my balance sheet for both of these data sets, they would probably be identical, okay, because they're grouped together on the chart of accounts. But looking at the list there, it just looks a little bit untidy, and over time, they're going to be really large balances. So I'm just going to pop back to the slides. There we go. So what do the transfer journals actually do? So they're slightly different in the UK and Ireland. Okay, so it will be slightly different. In the UK, if you do a VAT transfer journal, it moves the balances of box 1, which is your total VAT on sales, and also the purchase tax, which is box 4. In the Republic of Ireland, it differs depending on if it's sales or purchase tax, but also whether it's a payment due to or from the revenue. So for sales tax, it's the amount from the first box on the VAT return. And for purchase tax, if it's a reclaim, it's going to be box T4 plus the VAT charged on supply of goods and services. And if it's a payment to revenue, then it's going to be T2 minus the VAT due on intra-EU acquisitions and postponed VAT. So those are the values that we are going to move. Now moving on, there's two ways of doing this. Okay, we can start with a manual journal. So we could get the values that we need, and we could post a manual journal through nominal codes if we wish to do so. So I'm just going to pop into my third data set to demonstrate this one. Apologies for this. Just into nominal codes. Reshare the screen there. So just into nominal codes. You could go into journal entry and you can enter the journal in manually. So that is one option that you can do. Now that can be made easier if you have got professional. You have the option to memorize and recall journals. So you may want to recall a previous journal. So I'm just going to see if I've got one set up in here. Should have one. I think that one's my one there. So you will have skeleton journals. I've also got one that I've previously created. So this is the one that's the example in the handout as well. So here it shows me where I'm debiting, where I'm crediting. But again, this is where things can start to go wrong, because get your debits and credits the wrong way, you're going to make the situation slightly worse. So you can do them manually, that is possible. However, we do have the option to add this, do this feature within the VAT return, which is quite handy. And it takes that sort of worry out of getting the date right, getting your debits and credits right, not transposing numbers across incorrectly. So it just makes it a little bit easier. So to do it through the VAT return, if you go into VAT, you can see I've got my most recent VAT return here. If we pop into this VAT return window, in here you can see we've got the option to post journal first of all at the top. So in this return here, I've already done step 1 and 2. We've already reconciled the return, and we've got the option to complete the VAT return, which is where we are now. So at the click of a button, I can actually do that journal. So rather than having to manually enter all of that information, that has just been done as I've clicked the button there. What it's also done is it's marked that VAT return as transferred. So in the background here, you can see where it's highlighted here, it says no to transferred. But when I close this, it's just refreshed that now. It's recognized I have now done so, and we've got the Y here. So that is the VAT return, the VAT transfer within the VAT return. The transactions that have resulted, if you go into transactions, is these 4 at the bottom. Okay, so we've got 4 that have been created as a result of that VAT return. In the reference column, they have the VAT return number, which is very useful, and it's got the correct nominal codes as per my defaults. Okay, so my default on this data set is that my VAT liability is actually 2207. That's normally 2202 by default, so you might find that yours actually says 2202. Okay, so I'm just going to pause for a second. We're going to pop back onto the slides. And we're going to move on to the next topic, which is the bank payment or bank receipt. Okay, so this might be quite self-explanatory. This is making your payment to or from HMRC. That might occur at a little bit later. It might be a while before you actually post this payment. It could be sort of several weeks down the line. And also it could be a receipt. So you might be receiving a refund from HMRC or ROS. So again, this is the way that you are going to be recording that in your software, okay? What I'm going to show you at the moment isn't going to post anything into your bank, so it won't actually take care of the actual payment unless you are using e-payments or you're using salary and supplier payments via modular, okay? So it just marks it in your software. Okay, so first of all, manual posting is a simple bank payment. So going into bank, if it's a payment to HMRC or ROS, it would be a bank payment. If it's a receipt, then it would be a bank receipt that you post. And that would be posted to your VAT liability nominal code, which is normally 2202, but in my data set it's 2207. And you would use the tax code T9 because you don't have VAT on top of VAT. So that would take care of that for you. What you can then do is go back into the VAT return and mark that as paid. So again, if we pop into the demo, I can show you how you would do that. And that's us there. So we can go back into the VAT return, here. So if we have posted a manual bank payment or a manual bank receipt, then here you can mark it as paid. You can tick that box. Okay. In here, this is where you can also post automatically. So again, when you're doing it manually, that opens you up to potentially transposing numbers, getting bits and bobs wrong. So what you might want to do is just use this option here to pop in the correct date that the payment's actually leaving your bank account. Make sure all the details are correct. And at the click of a button again, it's marked as paid. So that has marked it as paid. And again, when we look at our list, that's just updated to say marked as paid. So we've tried to make these steps easy for you, okay? Now you can set up, like I said earlier, e-payments and salary and supplier payments to go straight from your software. You normally have an option here for e-payments to include that in your e-payment file. So a quick question there is, what if the VAT is not liability, is to be received, like purchases are more than sales? Will it be manual entry? So no, what's clever enough with this as well is it recognises, so it's saying record payment at the moment, but if this was a refund, this would actually say record receipt here instead, and you would have it doing a bank receipt on your behalf. So no, it will do both a bank payment and a bank receipt depending on if it's money owed to or from. So again, it helps you to get it right because you might accidentally post a bank payment manually when it should have been a receipt. However, coming into here and just making sure the right date is selected, it will make sure the correct transaction is posted to you. So I hope that answers that one for you. Okay. So the final thing I'm going to cover, and I have sort of jumped past it because this is where it does differ, okay, and that's the submission process. So the submission process is different in the UK and Ireland, and we're going to cover both for you next. So again, I'm just going to pop back to the slides there for one moment. Apologies there, I'm just swapping over slides. There's been a slight update on GoTo this morning. It's thrown things very slightly. There we go. Just make sure that that's again shared for you. So we're into VAT submission. So in the UK, we're now under Making Tax Digital rules. Okay, so Making Tax Digital rules means that we need to submit direct from the software. We can't take those figures, then log on to the gateway separately. We have to log on to our software and submit direct from our software. Now, many of you will still have been doing this for some time. Okay, so don't worry if you're doing that already, that's great, continue to do so. But if you're new to VAT, so if you've just started using the VAT section on the software or you're new to Sage, then what you do need to do is just check that your software is set up for making tax digital submissions. Okay, so you would do this by going into Settings, Company Preferences, and Enable Making Tax Digital Submissions. And that means that the software is switched on to submit direct from your software through the correct data. So let's have a quick look at that in the demo. Get back into the data set there. Okay, so it is in Settings. Again, just make sure that's sharing. So Settings at the top, Company Preferences, and pop in your password. And it's in this VAT section here. So what you need to do is make sure you've got your VAT registration number in here and that this box is ticked for you. Once that's ticked, it means you can submit via Making Tax Digital. So when you go into the VAT return, we open this up. You can go to Submit Online, and that will start the submission process for you. Now I do have a video of that for you. We're going to run that next. It's about 2 minutes long. It shows all of the steps of this. Now don't panic if you're already submitting under Making Tax Digital and it's slightly different. Don't worry, it can be slightly different if you're just setting up. Then we're going to come back and we just talk about the Irish submission, and then we're going to look at your questions. So please do get your questions across to us while we're showing the video there. So like I say, this video is about 2 minutes long, and that just shows you the submission process in the UK only.
In this demonstration, we're going to show you the steps to submit your VAT return online. We join the demonstration where we're on step 3 of the VAT return, so it's already been reconciled, and we're ready to submit it online. So on the right hand side, we click Submit Online. The online submission wizard appears, and you click Next. Ensure that the correct company name and VAT registration number appears, and then click Next. An authority page appears, and if you scroll down to the bottom, you can then click Continue. You're then prompted to sign in with your Government Gateway user ID and password. Once entered, click Sign In. You then click Grant Authority. You'll then be prompted to choose your period, and it should default to the correct one. Just make sure this is correct, and then select the checkbox to say that you agree to the following HMRC declaration, and then click Submit to HMRC. Once completed, a congratulations message appears, indicating you successfully submitted your VAT return to HMRC. You click Close. You then return to the VAT return, and as you can see, the VAT return is now flagged as being submitted.
Okay, so that was the submission process in the UK. So quite straightforward, just make sure that you've got the correct details there for logging onto the gateway, as it will connect on your behalf there. So it's slightly different in Ireland. Okay, so at the moment in Ireland, we're not under Making Tax Digital rules. So I'm just going to pop the slide back on there. So what happens in Ireland is you do need to submit manually. So when you click on reconcile, what that does is it creates an XML file for you, okay? And you have the option to open the folder which contains that XML file. That XML file needs to then be uploaded manually onto the Revenue Online service. Once you've done that, then you can tick the box to mark as submitted, and that just means that's all boxed off nicely for you. So it's a slightly different process for that. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick summary, and then I'm just going to pick up a couple of questions there. So first of all, before you do your VAT return, make sure you've got a backup. If anything goes wrong, the best way to undo it, or the only way to undo it, is to restore a backup. Remember that VAT transfer is used to transfer your sales and purchase tax values to the VAT liability. If you don't do this, it just means that some of your codes are going to start to accumulate really large balances and might start to look a little bit odd compared to your other nominal codes. However, the VAT transfer journal will take the pain out of posting it manually. You can just post it using the click of a single button in the VAT return. The record payment or record receipt option will recognise whether it's a payment or a refund required. So using that option is clever enough to sort of post the right transaction for you. UK submissions are done straight from the software through a digital link, but Republic of Ireland submissions will require you to download the file and then upload that onto the Revenue Online service. Okay, so please do get your questions across. There's a couple I've picked out that I'm going to talk you through. Okay, so first of all, I've got a quick question there that says, if you choose to post the VAT journal automatically, will it take into account if you've got adjustments? So yes, it will not post the adjustment amount for you. It will post the amount prior to your adjustments, because the adjustment will have been taken care of by a manual adjustment. So that's only if you've done the manual adjustment in the VAT return. Okay, I'm just having a quick look. There was a couple of other ones assigned to me. First, the other one, sorry, was just, could I show the manual entry of a VAT receipt? So we just pop back to the data set there. So if I wanted to do a manual receipt, then what I just need to do is go into bank accounts. Rather than pick a bank payment, so if it was a refund, I would just go into bank receipt and make sure I've got the correct date sorted. And then I would need to use my VAT liability nominal code, which in my data set is 2207 there. So I'm just going to select that one. For some reason, it's got a different description, but it's set as my control account. And then I would pop in the amount that I'm being refunded. Again, that would be posted on a T9 tax code first. And that is just because you don't pay VAT on top of VAT. Quick question there, do we need to set up a VAT account in our government gateway account first? Yes, try and get yourself registered as soon as possible for that, because when you come to do the submission, you will need to have those details ready. So it won't sort of prompt you into registering. It's sort of expecting that you've already done the that registration there. Quick question there, will you be covering adjustments? So we did cover it in yesterday's session. I'm not sure if you were in yesterday's session. We do explain that, but if there's anything in particular you'd like me to show you, just let me know and I can see if I can squeeze it into this session for you. So there's a quick question there. Is the date of the journal important? When I first did my stage training years ago, it's advised to use the next date. So normally by default, it'll be the last day of the period. So when we go into VAT return now, for example, if I try to do this journal, because this one hasn't been done yet, if I try to do the journal there, it will always pick the last day of that period for the transfer. So we recommend that to be used. So it's the last day of the period that we recommend. Just means that transfer is going to sort of go into the next period. It's not really relating to that next period, but we'll move into there. A quick question there is, I've got nominal code 2202 on Sage, but the cell is blank. Should it show a figure? So not necessarily. So if you've posted your VAT liability journal and then you've paid that off, then you would potentially clear that back down to 0. So I'm assuming you're meaning 2202, you're meaning this figure here. So as you can see here, I've got a large balance on this one, but that's either because I've done my journals, haven't yet done my payment, or I haven't done any journals for any of them. So if it's got nothing on there, just have a look at your activity, have a look on here, and just see if you've got lots of transactions going in. So you'll normally have some journals, then a bank payment or a bank receipt, then a couple of journals and a bank payment or a bank receipt again. So as long as you've got the history on there, I wouldn't be alarmed if it's come back to zero, because it's just showing that you've done your journals and then you've actually paid that off. Okay, so I think there's a quick one there. We've got partially recoverable items that need to be manually adjusted. So that would be under the partial exemption scheme. Bear with me, because I will just try to see if I can get onto. I may need to just try and do a quick VAT return to just show you how an adjustment would be posted. Now, there is a really good article as well on partial exemption and how to post the journal. The adjustment journals. So you might want to have a look out for that one as well. I'm just going to calculate a January return. Now, I don't have any data in here, but this is just to show you where you would do those adjustments. So partial exemption is one of those options where we do say manual adjustments can be used. Okay, so we normally say just if your accountant says so, HMRC says so, or if your VAT scheme allows requires it. Sorry, I'm just trying to think of the word there. So that would be one that would fall into that category. So for this, you would need to make adjustments, and I'll be honest, off the top of my head, I can't remember which one it would be that you would be adjusting, but you can adjust any box that has the edit icon there. So you can click on any of those. So say, for example, partial reclaiming here, we could click on box 4 using the edit icon. In the reason, we could do PE reclaim, just something that helps you identify what that's for. And then you can put your adjustment in by tabbing across. So you need to use the tab into the adjustment box, and you can pop your figure in there. And that can be a positive figure or a negative figure, just using the negative sign as well. So if I pop in, say, for example, -100 and save, just as an example. If I close that down, you can see how that impacts the box now overall. What that will do is it will also post a journal for you between your VAT liability and manual adjustments. So if we reconcile return, we'll quickly show you that. You've got the option to add in your calculation. So I know with partial exemption, it's quite an extensive calculation. I remember doing them once. If you wanted to add a copy of that in, you can do, and it just means that if you're audited, you've got that to hand in the VAT return. So I'll say yes to no to that, because we'll add that later. I'll just say no again, just to show you the journal there. So as a result of that, it will do a journal between your VAT liability, in my case 2207 and 2204. So please do have a look online for on the Help Centre for partial exemption. That'll give you a link to an article that we suggest you look at for that. It's a long time since I've done a partial exemption calculation, so apologies if I've got the boxes wrong there, but it was just to give you an example of the manual adjustment. Right, I'm just going to show you the Help Centre in our upcoming webinars. So, wrong one. This one here, sorry, do apologise, a bit thrown by the technical change this morning. So there we go. This is us in our Help Centre. So if you go to sage.co.uk/webinars and select the option for Sage 50 accounts, in here you will see all of our upcoming webinars. So you can see we're still in our correction series. We've got another session this afternoon, all looking at stock. And you can see the link to register for our reporting session tomorrow. So that really does revolve around standard VAT. So if you are on partial exemption, probably tomorrow isn't the sort of ideal session for you because it's slightly different on those schemes. But we've got running year end, so it's a popular time of year is December for running year end. So if you're coming up to that and you want to just put your mind at rest that everything's going to be okay, join us tomorrow afternoon for that. And also, we're starting to gear up for Christmas. Okay, so people will start to work from home, particularly with the weather becoming poorer. And we've also got things like adding things like messages onto statements and letters, and also things like global changes and batch changes. So changes you need to make once a year in your data set. In addition, you can go to sage.co.uk/help, and in there you can get help and guidance on anything in the software. So you can search for things like VAT. It will take you to the VAT hub and it will give you information based on where you are. So if you're in the UK or Ireland, there are different sections on there. In addition, we do have a very special webinar next week, and I am just going to share the link in the chat in just one moment for you. So this webinar next week is a bit more of a HR webinar, okay, but I think it's a really good one for everyone to understand. It's the do's and the don'ts for a successful Christmas party season. So it is a bit more of a HR one, but it does help you on how to keep on the right side of HR and keep HR compliant around that Christmas period. So it's probably a good awareness piece for everyone. So this is the one that I'd recommend you get yourself registered for. We've got some really interesting examples in there. We've got our team of experts from Advisor Plus, and they'll be able to field your questions too. So I am very quickly going to pop that into the chat, the link to the registration there, and get yourself registered for that. In addition, I did just put a link in the welcome message there to the remote data access session as well. Like I say, there's lots of sort of poor weather hitting us at the moment. So if you do find more of your colleagues are looking to work from home, then you might want to look at remote data access too. Okay, I think that's us on top of the questions there. So just before we leave, just want to say thank you very much for joining us today. We hope you will join us on another session soon. We've got lots and lots of sessions in the run up to Christmas, so we really do hope you'll take some time to join us on those. But in the meantime, it's bye for now, and take care, and we'll see you again soon.